Hello, I'm Ibrahim Imam, and welcome to another episode of the Neurology Lounge podcast. In this short episode, I will be exploring the 10 occupations that are distinctly hazardous to the nervous system. But first, a confession. This is not an original piece. I have plagiarized and modified it from a book. But it is okay. It is from my own book, Surfing the Brain. And second, a clarification. I am distinctly not advocating that you ditch your job after listening to this podcast. Although that might not be such a bad idea in some of the cases I will discuss. No, I just want you to be aware of how your job may be a threat to your brain health, and that perhaps might make you take measures to minimize your occupational risks. So, what are the 10 occupations that are distinctly hazardous to the nervous system? Here's my countdown. Number 1 is typing. Yes, this ancient skill that still persists. Previously an occupational hazard restricted to professional typists, carpal tunnel syndrome now threatens anyone who uses a computer and a mouse. CTS, as it is known, develops when the median nerve is entrapped or compressed around the wrist, and this manifests as weakness and sensory impairment over the thumb, the index, the middle, and half of the ring finger. The repetitive movements around the wrist and the pressure over the wrist are the risk factors here. Whilst desk work is the main risk of carpal tunnel syndrome, manual workers are not spared the peril because such occupations as assembly work, food processing, and packing are also hazardous. Number 2, use of vibrating hand tools. Apart from causing carpal tunnel syndrome, vibrating hand tools also predispose to cubital tunnel syndrome. This is entrapment of the ulnar nerve at the elbow. The elbow is, of course, a busy joint, and that makes the ulnar nerve which crosses it vulnerable to stretch and compression. The ulnar nerve crosses the elbow in the cubital tunnel where it is compressed and presents with weakness and sensory impairment of the little finger and half of the ring finger, the other half. Now you know why the ring finger was chosen for the wedding ring. Cubital tunnel syndrome, by the way, also happens to be an occupational hazard for truck drivers, baseball pitchers, and golfers. You could call it an equal opportunity syndrome. It makes no class distinctions. The third occupational hazard is farming. Okay, before you rise up in arms about this, let me clarify that farming here is a relatively innocent bystander with this occupational risk. The neurological hazard actually arises from exposure to pesticides. And the major neurological consequence of pesticide use is Parkinson's disease, a threat that is established without any equivocation. All pesticides carry the same degree of PD risk, but the badge of dishonor indubitably belongs to organophosphates and carbamates. The risk of Parkinson's disease is, however, not all or none because it is proportional to the duration of exposure. And as if Parkinson's disease wasn't enough, pesticides also seem to increase the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease. A word is enough for the wise and good for the earth and the plants it bears. Number 4 is welding. The neurological occupational risk relationship between welding and Parkinson's disease is almost an iconic one. Welding releases fumes of manganese, the metal that is suspected to be the trigger for Parkinson's disease in this case. As with pesticides, the risk appears to be proportional to the degree of exposure. But unlike pesticides, the reported risk of manganese is equivocal. Some studies have not found any relationship between welding fumes and Parkinson's disease, and one even found an inverse relationship between the two, reporting that welding reduces the risk of Parkinson's. Surely there are no fumes without fire. In spite of this minor controversy, or because of it, neurologists are forever vigilant for manganese fumes when they make a diagnosis of Parkinson's disease. They are aware, after all, that only more data will clear the fumes. As an addendum, many other occupations, from teaching to computer programming, have been reported to increase the risk of developing Parkinson's disease. And this is presumably because of occupational stress. Number 5 is smelting. Just as welding conferred notoriety on manganese, so has smelting endowed lead with infamy. And lead's neurological ignominy is the peripheral neuropathy it causes. The classical but rarer form of lead neuropathy is a motor neuropathy which sets in subacutely, and it is a manifestation of porphyria which is caused by lead. Far more common is chronic sensory neuropathy, and this is thought to be the direct result of the toxicity of lead. Beyond neuropathy, chronic lead exposure has garnered disrepute for its reported links with motor neuron disease, but this risk association is still contested. In fairness to lead, other periodic table elements such as thallium and arsenic also pose significant occupational risks of neuropathy. Number 6 is steelwork. While still on metals, it is worth pointing out the reported occupational exposure to iron causing meningiomas, a rather benign or often benign tumor of the brain. Dmitry Mendeleev must be turning in his grave. And we come to number 7, which is playing music. Neurologists, particularly of the movement disorder fraternity, listen to the occupational history of their patients with very keen ears, and these ears literally prick up when they hear that the patient is a musician. This is because a large swathe of musical instruments predisposes musicians to career-threatening, task-specific dystonia. This is a class of dystonia which targets the highly skilled muscles that produce harmonious melodies. Whilst task-specific dystonia embraces such non-musical disorders as writer's cramp, runner's dystonia, and even croupier's cramp, it is musician's dystonia that constitutes its broadest spectrum. And the reason is not far-fetched. Playing musical instruments over a lengthy period of time requires the repetitive performance of very exquisite movements. Initially, the dystonia is only evident whilst playing the musical instrument, but unfortunately, it eventually manifests during unrelated tasks and even at rest. The diversity of symptoms of musicians' dystonia is rivaled only by the number of instruments in the music ensemble. They range from finger incoordination to upper lip tremor. And number 8 is singing. It goes without saying, but it must be said, singers are at risk of dysphonia, a form of voice dystonia that they share with teachers, telemarketers, and aerobics instructors, for obvious reasons. And number 9, sports. Unsurprisingly, competitive sports take a heavy toll on the nervous system. Stretched or trapped by a long list of risky sports which include archery, ballet, basketball, bowling, football, golf, hockey, tennis, weightlifting, gymnastics, and wrestling. The classic sport-related nerve entrapment happens to be of the long thoracic nerve, and this manifests with a winging appearance of the scapular bones on the upper chest at the back. Unfortunately, many sporting-related neurological outcomes lie at the malign end of the spectrum, And at this extreme are such appalling diseases as chronic traumatic encephalopathy or CTE from repetitive contact sports, Parkinson's disease from boxing-related head injuries, and motor neuron disease, especially from playing professional football. Although the evidence for some purported risks is anecdotal, it could be risky to dismiss them in a neurology clinic. And we come to number 10, which is shift work. This is, of course, a no-brainer, as every shift worker knows. Sleep disruption is the most prominent, but by far not the most serious of the hazards of burning the midnight candle at work. It is common knowledge that shift work reduces alertness, thereby compromising work performance. But more seriously, shift work increases the risk of several neurological disorders such as stroke, epilepsy, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, and even multiple sclerosis. As if these are not enough, shift work also impairs the function of many other organs and predisposes to malignancies such as breast cancer and colon cancer. Indeed, there is an incredible number of disorders that are now grouped under the remit of shift work sleep disorder, or SWSD. Shift work is such a medical nuisance because it disrupts the brain's critical circadian or timing rhythm, and it disrupts the production of melatonin, a hormone that plays a hugely crucial neuroprotective role. So sleep over it before you think of taking that next lucrative night shift. If you found this podcast enlightening, do leave a comment or at least click on the like button. And if you want to learn a bit more about your nervous system, why not check out the source of this podcast, which is my book, Surfing the Brain. And if you want to learn a bit more of the academic dimensions of the themes I explored, then you may want to check out my website called Neuro Checklist. And to make sure you do not miss the next episode of this podcast, why not subscribe to the iTunes, the YouTube, or the Spotify channels of the podcast? Thank you very much for your time.